now is empty.
Right, but we haven't added any parking. We have not added any new parking, which you're gonna need to continue to add new parking as you grow.
But why would you not use that right down here where your parking is now, right there, and make that larger, up towards the tennis
Yeah.
courts,
I-
down
That's
around
all
the
staff
outside?
parking there, isn't it?
That's staff parking right now, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly look at it. I think that you're going to end up filling a lot, you're gonna end up having to pave every little piece of grass you can find, I think, to get what you need.
I think you also, you
Um,
might, Randy, also run into some fire issues and safety issues for access to the core.
Save money on mowing.
If you courtyard off and make a figure eight,
Blacktop.
double courtyards up at the top,
Yeah.
that might not be fire approved because they couldn't have access to the crisscross. Well, but if you're talking about building up here,
Yeah,
and up here, and up here, and crossing that again, and repeating this up here, it's gonna be real hard for fire to get to this center access, and you're also cutting off some of the
they do it
egress
all the time.
options.
I mean, they do it all the time on buildings. I mean, how,
Salem Township Fire?
no, I'm talking about on buildings, commercial buildings, they do this all
I
the
get
time.
that, but
I
you're
think,
also.
I think there's gonna be some also, if you look at this, and we have to get Cleiningers to look at this, but once you cross the entrance off of 22 there, and if there's a building that's, if the building is extended out into that practice field area, there's gonna be a whole off of 22 access, because you need more I think fire safety is gonna have to be checked, because you need more access points in as you extend that building, to be able to get to the building.
Well, they're gonna want this drive to be able to loop all the way around.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, we would
And-
still have
and
that.
we've got,
Still have to have that.
isn't this significantly higher than this?
The land?
Yeah,
Very
No, it's going up next to the.
That's
is
pretty
it,
flat.
is it
It's
pretty
flat.
flat?
It goes
So
up.
it's back,
It's
it's
back
back to
to
where
that
we had those
driveway. That road is-
Okay.
I just think that's a better idea than building a new school.
Yeah.
I just-
I mean, at the end of the day, we gotta look at the total cost, and
Well,
we can
and-
have all the wonderful ideas in the world, but
Right,
until we can get
and,
into
and
it.
again, I wanna make sure we're thinking long-term, because at some point, you're maxed out. And now you're sitting with a building that can hold 2,500 kids in it, or however many kids you wanna put on here. What are you gonna do with this building when you're maxed out of it?
Well, didn't we say that when we get to 2,500, we're gonna start looking at adding a second high school?
Yeah, that's what the.
Right, and what I need to do, would need to figure out is how many can we really fit on this, how many can we really fit on this site?
And I would say this, and this is just my own personal opinion, I think 2,500 is probably a little too big. I think we should start looking at a second high school when we get to about 2,100 to 2,200. That's just my own,
2021.
that's just my own personal, but
Okay, so in phase two, because in phase two, we hit that number.
right.
So I don't want to build a huge building here for in phase two for you to tell me that we need a second high school. Because then this is gonna be so oversized to be one of two high schools.
Well, as we keep growing though, those buildings are gonna get full at the lower levels.
Right.
And we're gonna have to funnel maybe 7 through 12 in that building.
But we're hearing that we don't want 7 through, I'm trying to listen to what I hear, and I'm not trying to be a devil's advocate, I am kind of, but I'm hearing people say, I don't want 7 through 12 in this building, I want them in a building that is thoughtfully designed
And while I
for
think
7
that's
through
really
12.
good that people can give you that opinion, it's just that it's an opinion. And we have to go with, like the teachers you're saying at the elementary, I was at that meeting, and after the meeting, when we talked, I didn't get the same feeling you did, that they all wanted a K-5 building. Some of them said that, but I didn't get that feeling. So I think it depends on when you talk to them and who you talk to.
Okay.
And that changes so frequently
Right,
that I'm almost to the mindset where I'm not really worried. My worry is the community, and those teachers are still gonna teach. We've moved them all around the district, and they're not going anywhere. The ones that are staying are staying.
right,
Whether they're here, whether they're moving 2 years, they're still gonna stay.
right.
My thing is, how do we sell this to the people that are paying for it? And
At the least.
at the least amount of money, correct. So, I think, we gotta worry about this, we gotta worry about that. We'll never make a decision if we try to please everybody. So I think we have to figure out.
And we lived through those 9 levies, that did, I know this is a bond issue, but we lived through those 9 levies, and when you're in a meeting like we had, sure, I'd like to have this, and they'd say, oh, I'd like to have that,
Yeah.
but then when they go to vote to pay for that, it's a lot different.
Right.
I heard
Right.
it would be $275 on a $100,000 house. Okay, there's not many $100,000 homes in the district, so it's gonna be more money. And even though the majority of the district would go spend $275, $300 at a bagel stand,
Right.
when you put the word tax on it,
Right.
it's done, you're finished.
Right. Well, let me get through
Yeah, go ahead.
each of the
Yeah,
options,
Sure.
and then let's circle back around. So when we look at, Greg's, at option 1A, that kept the high school, need to add on to it a little bit if we're keeping it in phase 1. This option keeps the junior high at 7 and 8. We need to put a small addition on that building for it to stay a 7 and 8. The intermediate building becomes a 4 through 6 building. So that building ends up pretty much getting its maximum additions, because at the end of that phase, you're sitting at 1,500 students. So that pretty much does the full build out of the intermediate. And then Greg proposed having a single PK through 3 elementary building. That would be a 2,100 student, single elementary building. Potentially built on the Salem site. My concerns about building on the Salem site is that this was me taking the intermediate building and putting it on the Salem site. So if we want a 2,100 student building, which is 600 more than this, to build that building while keeping Salem online is going to be very difficult, because that size building is going to want to occupy a good chunk of the site where the existing Salem is sitting.
It'll be 2-story or it is 2-story?
That is 2-story, so you would,
Like this building.
And that would be every student from
Okay.
Harlan Butlerville,
yes, that would be,
Salem, Morrow, and Mainville, Hamilton Township, all in one elementary building.
all in one elementary building.
And it
So,
would be where?
Tomorrow.
On
In
the
Salem,
site.
at Dr. High School site.
okay,
And you would close down Butlerville and Mainville.
yes,
The thought would be that Mainville could be used as a board office in phase 1, and
so,
we'd have to relocate transportation.
To Butlerville?
so some of the,
Well, not the Butlerville.
Oh.
You couldn't use that acreage, you need more acreage than that. I was thinking, my thought was to come down here on the 44 acres and put a new transportation facility on one end and additional sports fields on the remaining acreage.
Why would transportation have to be moved, just because we're building a new high school, a new elementary there?
transportation needs more space than what it currently has. At the end of the day, transportation needs like that much space. As your district continues to grow and your number of buses continues to grow and you need an appropriate garage and maintenance facility for those buses, your transportation facility is gonna take up more space than what it's currently taking up.
It just seems like there's so much space at Salem that's not used, like grassy area. You
But
know,
that whole
it would be-
field.
It would be big enough to expand
So-
transportation and
Well,
still
you could
build
do
a
that, but
building.
you couldn't really build another school, you couldn't put another school.
Right, so
Right.
this option looks at keeping transportation where it is, but it's 1,000 student elementary, that I'm showing on here behind the existing Salem, so that you can build 1,000 student elementary while Salem still stays up and running. And then you demo Salem after that one is built. So this
And what
option
goes there?
keeps,
What goes there where Salem is currently? Just open
Or we can
space?
tear
that
it
would
down.
be your front, that would be your parking and
Yard.
front yard. You have a little bit of, you would have a little bit of extra front yard space, whether that be the site of a new future board office or something, so you would have a little bit. You could grow this building potentially,
Mm-hmm.
and move the parking further this way in the future. It's just you can't, it's gonna be hard to build first phase one really big elementary there while keeping Salem.
But you could
It's
build,
easier to phase a larger elementary on that site.
so, that gray box on the left could be a new classroom wing that is built after Salem.
Sure, we could
Right,
grow
phase two.
these two sides and grow them academically if we needed to in the future, or whatever. I mean, that's not necessarily what the footprint would look like anyway, but.
Right. I was just thinking, if we're looking at transportation anyway, we have way enough room to do that larger elementary.
It depends on, so this, oops. You wanna think about, yeah, where ideally you would like that larger. So if transportation moves, you're right, you have all of this area back here. You just need to, you just need to be thoughtful and think about placement of that elementary on the site, because you wanna make sure that you get, not
Playground,
only the
buses,
playground space, but you wanna
access.
have circulation all the way around it.
Mhm.
So it would be tight. I think it will end up being tighter than you think to put, if you say put a 2,100 student elementary on this site and keep Salem up and going. I think that
And how many grades is that again, please?
this option was PK through 3,
And it's every,
every.
okay, so it goes, with all due respect, it goes against everything we've heard, which
Yes.
is kids, they want their community elementary schools and they'd like to have more grades in those 3 community elementary schools.
Right.
Well, it does address the fewer transitions, because
It does address fewer
you're getting
transitions.
PK through 3, but it does not address the size.
Can I ask this question? When people say transitions, do they mean that they don't really like us bouncing grades around, which we've done the last 4 or 5 years? They don't really mean moving from building to building.
No, they mean moving from building.
No, they do, they mean
Yeah.
moving from, they don't
They
want
think
to
they could
move
start
every other year to a new
Then they go to an
building.
elementary, then they come back to
Right, because
Salem.
we've shuffled grades for the last
No,
5 or 6 years.
Correct.
when they're talking about transitions, it is,
We do it well.
when my child starts in kindergarten,
Right?
and if they go 13 years in the system, and the system is set up and stable, how many times does a student have to change buildings to move through the system?
Right.
Okay,
But there are some people, am I right or wrong, there are some people who feel strongly about that because we bounced grades around for
I
5 or
think
6
that
years. And that
enhanced the
has enhanced
anxiety.
some of that.
Yes, I think that enhanced the anxiety,
Trying to
but
think
when
that
you
if-
talk,
What I think is fair to say. And
Yes.
if what I think
Well-
is not fair to say, just
No,
tell me,
that's-
but
yeah.
I think that's,
well, it
that's
has
a
been
good thing.
compounded because of
Yes.
we closed this building and we redistricted and we shifted, and then state
They go
fiscal
one year at
came in and
kindergarten,
said
and then they
close
go to
Mainville. and
Right, yeah,
we
we-
realigned and-
correct.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, their
We've
other
been-
kid has already been there, and they're
We've
going.
been living year to year,
Yeah.
and as we live year to year, we've had to adjust year to year.
Yeah, now, the focus on this wasn't so much, I discounted the transition piece, although there are fewer transitions. The focus on this, I've heard some stuff about, well, can't we get by with just doing additions? So this focus is a new building and additions, and I wanted Christie to model that so we could see where we were out in year 10, and we could see what that begets us when we get into phase 2.
Right, so
And the
what-
new building was, when you say new buildings and additions, instead of a new high school building,
Instead of a new
it's,
high school.
it's a new elementary building in additions to the high school, the junior high, and the intermediate.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Right.
But what I wanna look at is what this does to phase 2. Because then in phase 2 is when we suggest building the new high school, which would then move 6 through 8 over to the existing high school, which the existing high school will be a perfect size for that. But then at this point, because we built that 2,100 student elementary, we now have excess square footage in phase 2. That's sitting there, because
Where, at the elementary?
At the big elementary.
so what, in this option, and I'll go to the next one pretty soon, but in this option,
But
what
we
it
have
did
full day
was,
kindergarten, and we're still gonna have
in that,
Full day.
in phase 2, that 2,100 student building becomes PK through 2. You move 3rd grade over to be with 4th and 5th, and then the intermediate and the junior high both become 3 through 5 buildings, but they're both considerably too big at this point. So you can see that the intermediate building in phase 1 got added on to become a 1,400 student building. In phase 2, it only needs to accommodate 850. The junior high in phase 1 was built to accommodate 1,000. In phase 2, it needs to accommodate 850. So then the question is, what do you do with the excess square footage that is sitting in those buildings? The other concern I have with this option is it has the whole district together in K through 2, and then you split the kids in 3 and 5, and then you bring them back together. So you're gonna end up with some anxiety because of the kids leaving their friends and then coming back. So then let's go to the next option that Greg,
Yeah, that was a focus on additions only, and that, you know,
I still like
I
that.
had heard that concern that, you know, we wanna see if we, you know, is it more fiscally efficient to do additions and what, you know, rather than some of the other options that we've been looking at.
so let's go to the next option that Greg had me look at, which this kept the same phase 1, so it's still building that 2,100 student elementary. What the difference is how we deal with phase 2. So in phase 2, instead of building a new high school in phase 2, we pull 9th grade out. And 9th grade is now over in the junior high building, so this option does create a freshman building in the junior high building, but that building's way too big. So you have 550 ninth graders sitting in a building that is there to serve 1,000. So what do you do with the excess square footage? So Greg talked about that, we talked about community use, we talked about maybe board office goes over in that building.
Our alternative school, Old Miami Online, maybe for-profit daycare,
Our alternative school.
well, yeah.
We might.
This is, phase 2, 10 years out.
Right. So
You guys will be gone.
instead of building,
Thanks, Greg.
so instead of building a new high school in phase 2, this option builds a new 6 through 8 building. So, don't know what site, but we would need a new 6 through 8 building since the high school isn't available for that 6 through 8 to move into. So you build a new 6 through 8 building, and then we need to continue to add additions to the intermediate. And then that PK, what was a PK through 3 at 2,100 becomes a PK through 2 to be able to deal with the enrollment growth. So what's nice about this option is you don't have that splitting into 2 and then coming back. My only reservation is that I think Greg's right, I think high school is the space that we're gonna see the most change, and that we might be wanting a new high school over a new middle school, that it's gonna be, that your existing high school is gonna feel more appropriate for a middle school by the time we get to phase 2. And that at this point you could very likely be saying, hey, let's put the middle school in the high school and build the new high school.
And you have a whole bunch of empty space.
And, right, and you have a whole bunch of empty space. So, so now I want to,
But that speaks to the, you know, why don't we just do additions?
right.
Concern.
So let's jump to, I wanna jump to 2B, and then I wanna walk through 2C and through 2D. 2B is the option that in all the community meetings, we ended up coming back around to, and what most of the folks were asking for.
Does 2B a popular choice in your results? Do people always pick 2B?
Everybody at the end of every
No,
community.
other places.
Oh, no, these are specific to Little Miami, I don't have this option for anybody else. Oh, to be or not to be? Okay, so, just to refresh in option 2B, that built the high school in phase 1, so that the existing high school could become the middle school, the junior high could become a 3 through 5, the intermediate could become a 3 through 5, and we built 2 new elementaries. at PK through 2, such that in phase 2, all you do are add additions. There's no new buildings that have to come online in phase 2. It's just additions to what we set up at the beginning. So what I did is I modified 2B, and instead of building 2 new elementaries in phase 1, I looked at just building 1 new elementary in phase 1. So when you look at option 2C, we still build the new high school in phase 1 and move the middle school into the high school. We add on to the junior high such that it can be a 4-5 building, so a grade level building. And then the intermediate becomes a PK through 3, and we build a second new PK through 3. So this is responding to the folks that say, we ideally would like our youngest kids a little bit closer to home and not all together in one. And so then when I look at literally the intermediate facility and look at the design of it, you have a wing that serves up to 800 right now. You would be wanting to add a wing to the opposite side. In my mind, adding a wing to the opposite side could be a great PK through K facility on that opposite side. You have a lot of site there for people to come in and out. So that's what I did there. So that brings the intermediate up to about 1,200, a little over 1,200. And then you just build 1 new elementary that is a 1,000-student elementary. Still bigger than what the community is asking for. It's not 2,100 though, but you build a 1,000-student elementary on Salem site, which is the one that I showed you, which then gives you some room to grow if you want to grow that larger on that site.
And you can leave transportation there.
We could leave transportation there if we wanted to. At some point, if the 1,000-student elementary wants to continue growing, at some point, I don't know. So I don't know that you want to invest $5.5 million in a new transportation.
Right.
Or not.
On that
But-
site.
Right.
But we do need more support than what's there.
Right. So this option does bring the cost down a little bit from option 2B because we're only building 1 new elementary instead of 2. We end up with larger elementaries than what we heard from the community, but those larger elementaries are laid out in such a way that you really kind of have separate entrances and things like that, so I think it would be okay. So then phase 2 of option 2C is just adding additions to what was in place in phase 1. Okay, so that's that one. And then the next option I want to go to is option 2D. And what this option does is it doesn't build a new elementary at all in phase 1. What it does is it totally maxes out the junior high and the intermediate to their 1,500 capacity. We build the new high school. Your 6 through 8 move into the existing high school, and the junior high and the intermediate both become 1,500 student buildings. My concern with this is that the junior high and intermediate are gonna feel really crowded towards the end of phase 1 because we didn't build a new elementary. And I get worried because it's the younger grades and you know you have to stick to the 25 kids per class, that you don't necessarily have the flexibility to cram kids into an early elementary like you do at a high school, middle school level. So we need to think thoughtfully about that, but it does follow the master plan, which says these 2 buildings become 1,500 student buildings. So you're building the additions that you say you're building, and you need new square footage for your enrollment growth. So you're gonna spend those dollars in this option to build the new high school because that's where we see the most change in curriculum. So whether we build new square footage for a high school, new square footage for an elementary, let's build it where we think that there's the biggest change in curriculum. You could build the new high school and again, not bring all the athletic complex with it in phase one. The athletic complex could come later. And then phase two of this option, we have to add on to that new high school. We'll have, when that existing high school becomes a middle school, and that middle school continues to grow, we're gonna need to add on to it, like the diagram that I showed. The junior high stays at 1,500, the intermediate stays at 1,500, they're maxed out. So then in phase two, we do need to add an elementary to be able to, react to the additional elementary ages. It will be a small elementary, maybe that's okay. Maybe this elementary is going closer out to Butlerville and it's okay that it's a little bit smaller, I don't know. But you would end up with two 1,500s and a 700. So that new elementary is about half the size, but that new elementary could be the one that grows.
But, Butlerville has 240 students right now.
Yeah,
Could you, on your PowerPoint, on your computer, go to the Butlerville site for me, please?
yeah, I think I hit it, so I think I need to unhide it. Maybe. All right, we'll do this. Where did I get the Butlerville site? That is that the Butlerville site or is that Mainville? That's Mainville. That's Butlerville. Here, you can just see it.
As we shift here, I just want to shift, if we were to add the addition on the current intermediate school, is there enough room to then absorb the kids from Mainville to that particular site? Like if you were to do a 700 or 800 student addition, because that
I'm so
intermediate can.
confused.
This is Butler.
You asked me to go
I
to the
did, and then I
Butlerville
shifted
site.
gears and I went to
Oh.
while you were looking, I just asked it. If
Okay.
you were to build out the intermediate school the way
Yep.
that it sits,
Yep.
is there enough capacity to absorb the kids that would be Mainville Elementary if you were to then take Mainville offline? Because that, just spitballing a little bit. Is there enough room to accommodate those kids that would be in that elementary building plus growth if you were to make that?
A wing here?
I don't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can,
800 kids.
yeah, I mean, you can add another 700 at this site, making it a 1,500,
Okay.
which is what
And what could,
that option does.
if you were to take your Harlan Butlerville site and right now it has what, 240?
Yeah,
Let's say you were even to double that and make it a 500 student elementary school, what would, I know you can't do it right this second, but what would that look like on that site?
I can't build anything else on the Butlerville site, it's too small.
Bridges,
that-
they,
You can't build anything on that side?
Not much, not enough to, I mean, because you're already missing, and your cafeteria is your gym, and that is undersized to begin with. You're lacking an incredible amount of admin space. So to build on this site and still have the drives, the playground, the amenities that you need, it's too small of a site.
You talking addition, Tony, or?
No, not, I mean, if
Well,
you
we're
were,
never gonna have 500 kids involved, I don't know.
We have to bus them from Mainville to get them there.
That's what I kinda thought.
Well,
I just don't think it's ever gonna happen.
I'm just thinking, if we're talking about the growth, we know that that's probably where the growth is gonna be last.
Right,
fair to say?
right, at the
Fair to
end,
say?
at the end, yes,
But
yes, so in phase two, when we need like a 700 student elementary,
In Butlerville?
is that what, I know, I don't think you'll need it in Butlerville, but,
No, I was just wondering if you, yeah, on the site, the way that Butlerville sits right now, if
Right.
we were to be able to go to those people and say, at some point in time, on this site in Butlerville, there will be a 400 or 500 student brand new elementary school on this site, is that possible?
I don't,
Even if you-
I
if
would
you
not
get- if you-
suggest that. I would suggest finding another site in Butlerville. This
Or
site
you have to go
is,
get some land.
yes,
You gotta go get the farmers nearby to donate their land or buy it
Yeah.
cheap. Or get someone else in Butlerville to
I
get
mean,
the
you
township
can-
guys to go find someone that's gonna donate 50 acres to you.
I mean, this is your site, this is the 600 student
If
elementary.
they want a school, Mike, I'd make these pastors work, you know, my
I mean,
comments about the
this is
politician
showing you a
guys.
600-student elementary, and it can't fit the parking and the playground on it that it needs.
Well, go ahead and finish up what you,
So,
what you're talking.
So that's really, I mean, that's option 2D. Okay, so that's just one new building and then additions.
I think Regina has a question.
Yep, Gina?
That new building, is it a K-5 or a K-3? You've got both on there, and I'm
I
just.
do. Where are we?
Phase 2.
2D?
It's a it's a K5. If you look at the breakout of the grades to the right,
Oh, okay,
you can see what I was suggesting.
thank you.
Third, fourth column.
Yeah.
You guys-
So where it says proposed
Where
grades
it
K three,
says-
it really
yeah.
just needs to say K
It should say
five.
K5.
Our preschool
Right.
numbers that she's got projected, our preschool's not gonna grow, right, because of our models. I mean, are we getting the same percentage of growth for preschool as we have for all the other grades? We can't.
I think we'll add units,
Chris is on the way.
as our population grows, the
Yeah.
incidence of
Phase space.
this
Yes,
population
yes,
is
yes,
what
I
we
just
need
see
to
the
serve.
numbers thinking,
If-
preschool's not
If
gonna
I'm,
grow.
if I'm looking at this,
It'll grow eventually, but not by the same X.
so we're saying,
We're at six
option
now,
one
we're on the cusp, by the time we get
is
through next year,
$62.8
we'll have
million.
to add
Okay.
So
Yes.
if
So
not
we're
every other
looking
year,
at
we're
it.
probably
Yes.
gonna add
6
another
million
one. It's kind of
renovation of
like
Salem.
Okay.
4.4 renovation of Harlan, or Hamilton Mainville for a board office, 5.5 transfer. So we're saying total cost of phase one for option one is $78 million.
Yes, there are some, I mean, so there's a lot of,
And we closed Butlerville, Mainville, and this is doing nothing tomorrow.
correct. So there's dollars not in there, there's dollars not in these numbers. You know, there's demolition dollars if we need to demo, you know, if we're demoing Morrow, there's demolition dollars for Morrow.
And the renovation, that covers any site work?
This $4.4 million number is that when we did our physical assessment and we looked at Mainville, we said on year one to fix what needs to be fixed in that building, from the mechanical system to the roof system, you need to spend 4.4.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what I put in here. This 4.4 is not tearing down a bunch of walls and creating offices and really turning it into a board office.
So that's
It's,
just-
I'm moving into this building and we're making these rooms work as board office spaces.
And then the $5.5 million for the transportation
Is an
facility.
estimate for new transportation. Doesn't include purchasing land.
Okay, so there's no land there.
No.
There's no move, okay. So this 78.7 estimate, we're probably closer to 100?
I don't know that we would be at 100. It depends on, I don't know how much your land, I don't know how much your land is going to, so what's not in here is your land purchasing and your demo purchasing. Is really what's not in here. That's not gonna be
What did it
And-
say it was
20
gonna
million.
cost to demo,
The estimate we got was $360,000 to $700,000.
To demo Morrow?
To demo Morrow.
I have a quote, that I
700,000.
got.
Up to 700, from 360 to 700 is what the estimate we got about 3 years ago.
They won't make it all back selling bricks, okay?
Well, judging from the interest, yes.
It's a good idea.
The quote that I got is sitting at about 500, it's about close to 550 is the cost to demo Morrow.
That's abating it, that's doing all that.
To abate it and demo it and leave a flat graded site.
Okay, so half a
Okay.
million.
All right.
And what would be the general cost if we wanted to turn that into the central office and
For
renovate it?
Morrow,
Mhm.
to
Just spitballing.
to
general number.
renovate that building, because what you do is you strip it down to its structural core.
Right.
And then bring it back up. The cost, if you wanna renovate that full building,
Well, just,
well, you're gonna strip it down to its core. You're gonna take out every window. It needs a roof replacement, so I don't think you're gonna leave wings that aren't renovated.
just,
But you're gonna be putting in the total cost to, well, all right, so you already have the abatement No, you don't. So to strip it down to its core and renovate that building, you're looking at about 10.4 million.
How much was the new building?
About
Rick?
11. It's, you are going to spend 90% to 95% to renovate that building, Morrow, versus build new. And that renovation cost is not, it's not adding an elevator to make it handicap accessible. It is literally stripping it down to its core and just putting in some new finishes and new walls and new windows. We probably would have to add an elevator, I probably just need to add that, because by code, they would force us to add an elevator.
I'm just gonna
So-
say this, and I don't wanna hurt anybody's feelings, but if you demo Morrow and you close Butlerville and Mainville, I don't know that you're gonna have any money to
Everything
build
else is a moot
anything.
point.
I'm just throwing
They
that
won't
out.
pass.
I've been
They
getting
won't pass.
feedback for a month, and I'm telling you, if the plan is to demo Morrow, close Butlerville and Mainville, we won't be building anything,
Yeah,
and
we
we
don't have to
will
worry
have just
about
wasted
it.
everybody's time. That's just my gut feeling. I
What-
could be totally wrong.
What are options 3A and 3B? Ken?
3A and 3B, which I didn't print out, were the going to 2 high schools in phase 1, which seemed to be, no one's going for
But
that,
you
so I
didn't-
pulled them.
You didn't do a K through 5 plan yet.
No,
K through 5
The
plan.
community feedback for 2 K through 5 schools.
Yeah, that was 3A.
To be two, David, are you saying 2 separate elementaries that would be K through 5?
I'm thinking if you
And then
go
3A,
Excel,
3B.
from the campaign perspective, if I goes, you have a better option of selling a new K through 5 that's Salem, Harlan Township somewhere, as opposed to this massive Salem concept. And you put a new one in the 44 acres, or you retrofit this building to be the new one, or whatever.
Mhm.
But if everybody gets a new elementary,
Mhm.
you might
So-
have a better shot.
So option 2D, where,
2D?
well, no, well, 2D doesn't
2C,
build a,
2D.
2D
Right.
doesn't build a new elementary, it
I
just adds
sort of
on.
saw it, 2C was close.
2C gives you a new elementary, and you end up with 2 PK through 3s, or 2 K through 3s.
Right.
And it puts 4 and 5 as a grade level building in the junior high. Correct. People have not seen this, this is a follow-up from what we heard in the community meeting.
So is it possible to do 2, like Dave was talking about, and do 2 K through 5 buildings? I think it sounds like maybe a good compromise in the middle, which is it's less transitions, it's somewhat your community level elementary schools. It keeps the kids in the same building for a longer period of time together at the younger grades. And then I don't know what that then, what dominoes it
It
causes
is
to fall later.
possible, but what would make sense then would be that your intermediate and your junior high become those K through 5 buildings. And that they are, because each of those buildings will be 1,500 student buildings.
And I agree that that's a good option, but again,
our elementary.
our voters are not gonna vote if we don't have something closer to Harlan,
Okay.
and we do something.
Well-
In the beginning,
You gotta do something. Campaign wise, you guys don't wanna hear this, cause it's not gonna be nice to everybody, but you gotta figure out where your votes are.
well, that's
Because
the,
you can
well, yeah,
outvote-
but
Hamilton
wait, but
Township
that's
can
been the
outvote the rest
problem
of
in the
everybody else.
past, is that we split the district and say, screw that one, and let's go to the
I
votes.
understand that.
And you can't do that as a school board, Dave. As a
As
school board, you
can't.
cannot
That's
do
what I
that.
said, that's what I said, you're not gonna like that conversation.
Yeah, we
But the
can't
conversation
have that
is,
conversation as a school
you can
board.
pass a levy that, but you guys have to make good with it. The
I
campaign
understand.
team can pass a levy if I get everybody in Harlan, or Hamilton to show up and vote. And we've done that the last 3 times.
But then you wind
I
up with
know.
the same attitude in the school
I know,
systems
and that's why,
that we've fought to
that's why I'm
change.
trying to say, you need to get land out in Harlan and Salem Township area and build something out there.
Well, here's what we did. In the very beginning, there were 2 things that we asked for as a board. We asked that whatever plan we came up with did not involve closing down Butlerville and did not involve closing down Mainville. Because right, wrong, or indifferent, those, and I said this statement in, are sacred cows. You can like it, not like it, it is what it is. They like it. They like those buildings. We can say it doesn't have this, it doesn't have that, doesn't matter. The point being is if you want in people's wallets, you better give them what they want.
But
And-
none of those folks were then at the community sessions,
Well,
because
They
we
won't
didn't
get
have a.
those folks
You may
like
not get
these.
them.
You may not get
Well-
them, but the point being, we specified this as a board.
Mhm.
And the other thing we asked for was, what are our options with Morrow Elementary? Because what we're gonna tell the people is, we want you to give us money to build brand new buildings, and oh, by the way, we're gonna tear these other ones down, and that's all they're going to see.
So, as a
Dave,
public
you're not
comment,
being, it is what it is.
I know what it is.
All right, let's listen, let's hear.
Butlerville, I talked to Melinda last night. I'd love to keep Butlerville open somehow. I don't know how you do it. It's her challenge, maybe a little bit.
I don't know how you do it as an education building, but as a
Well,
school,
and
but.
whether you could need to go get that nearby farmer to cough up 20 more acres off the end of his plot,
Right.
and you expand the land a little bit and get a sweetheart deal and have the buddies out there talk them into it, right? You need, if you're gonna build out there, you need investment out there, and you need community to rally around the investment and go to the board of trustees and the council and say, if you want me to build a school out here, I need some land. And I need it cheap, and I need it contiguous to the land I've already got, or you give me 40 acres of new land somewhere. And get a farmer to
And
call you up.
that is an option, that is an
And
option.
that's something the board needs to do. If you can put something out there, I think, I'd love to see it out there from a sales
Yeah,
perspective.
fine with all.
And if you can build I don't know the population of all the grade levels, Melinda didn't have it off the top of her head last night when we were talking about it, but if you could figure out how to build a community school for K-5 out there and have enough critical mass without impacting the quality of education. That's the problem you have with a small building, is you can't get the quality of education. You can't get two teachers in each grade if you only got 250 kids out there for 5 grades,
Mhm.
right?
No, I agree with that. I
And
do
you're
agree
gonna
with that.
have kids out there that are not gonna be in the right class because it's not offered there. And if they're over here where there's a bigger mass, they're gonna have a better education opportunity to be in the right kid in the right class at the right time. Instead of having the right kid in the wrong class at the right time, right? And as a board, you can probably sell that.
But then you're saying to the people, you don't have the community schools that you want. You have the big school, and everybody
And
goes to
that's
the
what I'm
big
saying,
school.
if you could build two not so big K through
I
12,
agree
K
with
through
you.
fives.
The problem
And
then.
one of them has to be on that side.
But the problem
Yeah,
is
but
that
see,
a
the-
K through 5 is a 1,500, two
Don't
K through
like
5 is
K-5.
they're
And-
each 1,500,
and
and
not
we
only
can't
that,
support
Salem, we
1,500.
We don't have the
in one
land, so we have to ascertain the
Right.
land, and then we have to do the site work, and we're still at around $100 million. And the folks.
I think we're gonna be 100 million
And you
anyway.
have to have people that wanna go out to Butlerville.
That's exactly right. And I
And you
don't, I don't think you're gonna have people that wanna go out there, but my point being is, I think
We
we have to
thought
look
that-
at
we
what we
thought that-
have.
We thought that with the preschool,
Yep.
and we had a waiting list. We thought when we moved the preschool in, nobody would go. And you know what? We had a waiting
We had a
list.
waiting
People
list.
trying to get.
I looked in,
But I think we can add on to each one of these buildings and pick up what we need. If we only added, I'm just making numbers up here.
Right here.
If you take 150 people and add it on to Butlerville, we just ran some numbers, we just had some conversations, loose conversations, and I'm not looking at grade balances, et cetera. If you added another 450 to 500 people to Mainville, you took the intermediate school, you doubled it like it's designed to do, put 1,500 there, put 1,500 at the junior high, and then added on to the high school to add, I'd say another 300 to 500 people. You've covered your projections for 10 years. So look down 20 years, or 10 to 15 years from now, none of us at this table know what it's gonna look like. We're making guesses.
And back to your previous point about your sacred cows, I agree Butlerville should be, need something in Butlerville. It will help sell the whole concept. But I will, in Mainville, I don't think people care about the building, they care about the people running the building, the admins, the teachers, and
No, I agree
the
with you.
staff. And the building they know is a piece of shit, it needs to go. It's old, it's decrepit, it's undersized for the education purposes. The fact you can't have lunch breaks, what time the kids eat breakfast, or lunch, 10:30? 10:30 lunch, right? It needs to be bigger, and it's landlocked.
There's no argument there. But the point being is.
But if it's one street over, what difference is if it's on Foster Mainville or if it's on Zord?
Yeah, probably not.
Nothing.
At all.
It's
I
in their
agree-
community.
I agree with you, but
Right,
we
it's in
already
their
own this
community.
property. So.
We
what-
own
what
the
do I-
property right down here, put it there.
I don't have utilities down there.
Well, for $70 million, you can you can get something
You
down
know,
there.
for $70 million, you have to convince the people to give it to you so you can have it down there. And that's what I'm saying. We all come back to the same thing here. My opinion, and it's just my personal opinion, you tie as many people in as you can.
I agree. And if you're gonna sell it, you gotta get as many people in, but again, I'll come back to it is, if the whole district's hurting, we can't let one part of the whole district pull the rest of the district down. And we have to do
Right.
things.
That's not what's happening here. That's not what is happening here. What is happening here is we're trying to look at what the growth is, and we have to be very, very careful as a school board. This school board has, in the last several years, has created the trust with the people. If we go out there and tell them, you know what, we realize there's only a few of you down here, we can push this through with this down here. We're back where we were 10 years ago, and then the next time we come out with the bond levy and the Hamilton Township people don't come out, guess where we are?
We didn't pass a levy over here last time. The last 2 times we didn't pass
But
it in those townships.
That's my point.
And we're
My point
we're
is,
never gonna pass it.
The bond issue is only a portion. The operating issue comes in right behind it.
And I understand both of those, but we're never gonna get everybody in the farm community side to support any type of building over here. Never gonna happen that you're gonna get a
Well-
positive return over there. I almost guarantee it. It's never happened. I think,
But
Terry,
David, what do you think about when you look at 2B and you look at building 3 new schools?
I don't like-
And closing 3 schools? That's what
Listen,
you
it's
can't sell that.
perception.
You
We
can't
think
sell
that we
that.
need
no,
to do
it's
that.
perception,
There's no way.
but it's also, in today's academic community, we have 75, 80-year-old buildings in this district,
Yes.
right? We have a 110-year-old one or whatever it is now falling apart. There's probably not a school district in Ohio that has invested money in a 110-year-old building.
I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, no, and
Not,
you're
not,
right,
not,
and that's
not
the
to the
problem.
level,
My-
we're
yeah.
investing $500,000 to tear it down, $10 million to make it an admin building, what's it is to make it a undersized school, another $20
Well,
million?
yeah, I mean, that site is, yeah, that site is.
Well,
Right, but my
that
point
site-
is,
but that
people
site, if you look
understand
at
that
that site,
we have,
that's-
we have tear downs. People understand it, we tore down a baseball stadium 30 years old, right? Hamilton did. Yeah, we need to look forward a bit. You know the growth's coming. There's hundreds of platted lots out here that are already ready for development. This township we're in right now does not want to stop it. They're not doing anything to stop it. Salem has stopped it a little bit. Harlan stopped it only because of geography, okay? And in the infrastructure, but if anybody builds a big road out this way, development's gonna follow the road.
No,
Right. And there's
no-
already
no
talk of
argument
that
here.
road.
But the question that we
Right.
have to answer at this point in time, right now, 2017, is we gotta walk out to the people and say, here's what I would like for you to do. I would like for you to reach in your wallet and give me more money,
Right.
so that I can go build brand-new buildings, and I can go tear these other ones down. And I mean, that's how they're gonna see it,
And-
and they're gonna say no.
I don't think they'll say no, Randy.
And
That was my
from
question I was
what
gonna ask
I
you.
mean,
You don't think they'll say no?
Oh, I do.
Oh,
I don't, I think people understand that you can't teach, you can't remodel a 100-year-old building. We're not gonna remodel a
See, that's where you and I
cost-effectively.
disagree. That's where you and I disagree.
Randy, the numbers are here.
Yeah,
If-
no,
I mean,
numbers are
If you
here.
look at
You're
the
exactly
ROI,
right.
you're gonna be spending more money on those buildings
Yeah.
to still be in effect,
I
inappropriate educational
don't disagree with you when it comes down to $1 for this brick or $1 for this brick. I don't disagree with you
And
whatsoever.
again, the
However,
message, the
wait, hear me
message
out.
has to be approved for most
Yeah,
people.
But hear me out,
I
Dave.
got 50% plus one of the people that show up to vote that day have to buy into the message.
And see, what you're doing right now is, and what you do is, as a levy, that's fine. As a board, we can't do that. We can't say, I'm interested in 50.1. We're interested in 100% of the people at the table.
You're never gonna get it done.
What?
You'll never get anything done.
Well.
You cannot lead by acting for consensus. If so, get rid of you guys and say, only when everybody in the community says, yes, we'll do something.
Okay, well, let's just
Government
step
doesn't
back.
lead that way.
Well, let's
Look
just
at what's
step back
going
and
on in
look at it.
DC.
Dave,
You can't
Dave,
lead that.
stop for a second and listen, okay? Here's where we are. We represent the entire school district. As the members that represent the entire school district, we have to look at every child from everywhere. Now, when we look at Harlan Butlerville, when we look at Hamilton Mainville, when we look at Salem, when we look at all the different ones, at the end of the day, we know that these are important to these communities. So what we have to ask ourselves, Dave, hold it, just hold it. We have to ask ourselves, when we walk out to them and say, Dave, we need you to help us raise whatever that dollar amount is. It has to be a realistic amount, and they have to feel like that we have been responsible with their dollars. Now, with that said, I will tell you the conversations that I personally have had. Now, this is just me. I've shared it with the other members of the board, and I'll just use Morrow Elementary for a moment. There is interest in Morrow Elementary. There is interest in things of that nature if the school board leads, as you respond. And I agree with you 100%. Somebody has to have the vision. But at the end of the day, it's the dollars that come in that determine how far that vision out there goes. And when I look at these plans and I say to myself, you know, I mean, I'm just looking at, you know, at the end of the day, people are saying, how's this going to affect me? And when they look at this and I ask them for, you know, and I'm just gonna use worst case scenario, $213 million over 2 phases, they're gonna look at you and go, that's not gonna happen, unless they have something to gain. And that's where I'm saying, even though Butlerville may be small, even though Mainville may be small, by doing something to those buildings and adding things to it, just like when we got the levy passed, or came out of fiscal emergency, getting the levy passed, we opened up but Butlerville and Mainville.
They got their community school back.
They got their community school back. Now, if we say to them, we're going to take that, I see us flipping right back to where they were. Now, I could be wrong. I could be 100% wrong.
And see, my counter, Randy, would be, people in Hamilton Township don't care what brick and mortar they go to as long as it's close and there's the quality education in the middle of it. And the fact that we have a 80-year-old
You know
building
Hamilton
there-
Township better than I do, so I don't know, so.
And I'm Salem, so, but in talking to people around here, I don't, if I speak for the community, I want a community school. I have one here in this building, right? I have.
Well, it's not really a community school, this is grade specific.
Well, grade
yeah.
specific, but it's in my,
But it's
but may
big now,
become,
yeah.
it may become the new elementary for this community. If people get something, I don't think people here would care that we're one road over from where they are now.
Right.
Right.
And I agree with that.
Right.
I agree
So,
with that. But your Salem and your
we're
Harlan aren't
replacing
gonna
their
see it the
building.
same way.
We're and Salem, if the new K-3 is Salem, which was 2C, I think, or whatever, if we put a new one there, Morrow gets a new building, the the village council gets taxes, okay?
Well, not any more than what they're getting now.
The other will, there'll be more teachers there.
Well, if you have more, we have 1,100 there now.
Okay.
So if you put 1,000, but I understand what you're saying.
Go on.
They get more, they get a community school in Morrow, and then if you could keep Butlerville open for a little while, or again, I think the math is gonna be very hard on that community to justify keeping Butlerville open. Certainly can't expand it easily. You could levy and look at that there's a phase 2, could be a K-3 or K-5, half size, 1,000 size, if someone ponies up 40 acres. And you make that a phase 3 or phase 2 expansion and shift some of the load out that way. Maybe it's not on the current site, but maybe it's further out in Salem Township on the Salem-Harlan border. But I agree, you have to give something to every community. It makes it a hell of a lot more saleable. Doesn't make it impossible to sell if they don't have it. But I agree that as the 5-member board, you should try and help everybody.
And it should be unified, it should be the community. I don't like the Harlan, the Salem, the Mainville, I don't like
It's
it.
been forever.
I know, but it
You can't
doesn't,
fix
it's
that,
gotten
Nancy.
better than it was.
It's a lot better
gotten
than it
a lot
was,
better
and I
than
don't
it
wanna
was.
see us go back
And I
to it.
think by going to these K-5s, putting one in each community, we're going backwards instead of forward. So I agree, Butlerville, if we can find a use for it, what can we stick in Butlerville, at least keep it open? It's gonna be a lot easier for them to swallow
Make it
than
big preschool.
just closing and asking for new buildings. That, when I look at this as a community member, I go, they have 3 buildings, and I know the condition of these
Well,
buildings.
again, the question is, how long could you keep Butlerville open as a K through whatever school and not impact the education delivered? That's the question you guys need to answer. And can you have a local population that supports that school? If the demographics aren't there, we can go on a slide and say, we would love to keep it open, and maybe we'll put one out there when you hit this criteria, when this community, this bubble around that location gets this density of kids. But it doesn't make sense to keep a building open and there's 120 kids coming from that community.
Well,
And I don't know what the
and
number
my
is.
concern is that now that's the building that is old, and if I was out
Right,
there,
and I agree.
I would feel extremely slighted if my kids are still sitting in an old elementary building
And if I can
when
get them on a
every
shorter
other
bus
kid in the
ride,
It's not,
district.
to
it's
say-
not the mindset, Christie, I'm telling you, I live there, believe me, that is like
I'm gonna tell you, like,
Okay.
we were
Well,
just talking earlier, both my children went there, both my children went on to get, higher degrees, it didn't affect them either way.
Right.
Didn't affect them
Again,
either
it's,
way.
it's the people
And
inside
to
the
be
building.
told, and to be totally honest,
Exactly right.
It's the
the
people
that's
inside
right.
the building. And if you could make it, if you could, as a school board, can figure out a way to put a viable building there and keep enough kids in there that it doesn't impact, A, their education, and B, the overall cost of the district significantly detrimentally, then keep it open. There's no cost in if you can make it so there's no incremental cost in keeping it open, and people want it, leave it open. But
One of the
but the
questions I
short
asked was-
answer is you can't build on it and put it as part of the future part of this plan. You could conceivably leave it open as 2C asterisks.
Right now, we have kids going, because of the grade levels, we have kids traveling from Morrow to Butlerville, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's from Clarksville.
If
To
the-
fill that school, we have probably about 2/3 of the district that we
Go-
have
yes.
to travel to fill that school right now.
Okay, so it's not out of the realm of possibility to transport kids from Butlerville to the Salem site while a construction project was going on and building a new 300 to 400 student elementary on the site as it exists now. That's not out of the realm.
But you
Well,
don't
why
have
would
enough
you
people
do
there,
that,
that's the
Tony? You
problem.
wouldn't
It's
have
only
enough
6.
kids to bus there.
It's not less than 10, is it?
We
It's like
we have
6
kids from
acres.
Goshen to
5
Arizona
Yeah.
5.7
at
acres.
Buffalo.
Yeah.
So you really
Yeah.
can't build on that.
It really isn't. It really is not an appropriate site to build, or you're gonna build a 300 or 400 student elementary and never be able
Okay.
to expand it.
And you can
Because
hold
you
one
just
grade level right now.
can't.
I started looking a little bit at some OFCC renovation projects, and the renovation projects look like they're going at $160 to $180 a square foot for renos.
Sounds right.
Could we reno that building and sell it to the people of Butlerville as maybe not a tear down in a new school, but to take this school that has value to the people in that community and bring it up to 21st century standards? Or could we take that building and invest money into that? Because I look at it this way. I don't see it as investing money into that building. I look at it as investing money into that community and into those kids. And those students out there are any more important than mine that live in Morrow or someone that lives in Mainville.
Right.
And if the attachment is to the physical building and the location, or Nancy said that it's the Taj, right? If that's what the connection is it possible and feasible for us to renovate that building some way so that it's a current learning facility for whatever kids, whatever the number is. I don't know if it's 150 kids that are out there. I don't
It's
care.
25 kids a class, right? That grade level.
Right.
So if you can hold 200 kids out there,
Well, there's 240 out there now.
240 out there now, but how many are really
Grade
out?
level.
Right, but see,
Oh,
that's
no.
not, but those
I
aren't,
would
those
tell
are
you
Morrow kids though.
Less than a
Right.
quarter
Right.
are from Butlerville.
Right.
Less than
So
Morrow,
if you're talking
Goshen,
70 kids from the Butlerville community
From
area,
Goshen, they go there. Rochester, Gazette, they go to Butlerville.
right. So if you're
Oh,
talking,
okay.
if you're talking less than 100 kids, that's 4 teachers for K through 4, or 5 teachers for K through 4. 6 teachers for K through 5, if you'd put all K through 5 out there. I'd argue if I was a parent, back to Christie's point, if I'm a parent and I send I could probably get by with K through 3 there, but once they get in 4th and 5th grade and start band and music and other specials, you can't afford to keep them there. So you're gonna have to move those kids back to the core, just what we're doing today, and now you're talking a 3-classroom building or 4-classroom building, unless you start importing kids back out there.
Let me ask this, if we did something out there, do you think they would pass the levy? They haven't for how many years?
I don't think they would.
I don't know that that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't,
Well, if that's not the point, then,
and-
if the quality of education is the point, which it should be for you guys,
Okay?
2 new schools, 2 magnet schools, bigger populations, more offerings, more education, better teachers, wider selection of teachers, better match of students and teachers pairing, and a continuity for 3 to 4 years, that's the win that everybody gets.
And then that, what, I
And
guess
that's
what I'm hearing
2C.
is to bring them to the Salem site and do something, a new
Right.
building.
And that's 2C.
And bus them right now we're busing kids the whatever,
From
6 or
Salem.
7 miles from Morrow to Butlerville. You would just do that in reverse.
and,
And I,
but at
we
the
were on
end
the
of the
board
day,
of that
like you,
years ago.
like you said, those are wonderful. The problem is you have to ask people to open their wallets.
We got to ask people to open their wallets anyway, Randy.
That's right, but that's what I'm saying, if we
Well,
go
what's
the
the
one route.
best sell?
Yeah.
What can we sell is the
I
question.
think the best sell is you get a school somehow close to Harlan and Salem Township and put a sizable building there.
I'll
And that-
agree to that.
Right.
If we're gonna build buildings and just not add
Right.
on,
And you're gonna-
it's gotta go out there.
I just don't know if it'll
I
sell.
travel a lot, you know, guys, I used to travel the back roads of Ohio a lot. I see a lot of great buildings on the outside in a lot of districts, and you see even other districts around here bulldozing all the time, right? I don't have a problem putting a levy out there that says, we're gonna renovate, we're gonna build a new one here, we're gonna do a small addition here, and everybody's gonna, here's the plan. And you come up with a plan that is sizable for today. Yeah, there's a future commitment or future decision, not a commitment, a decision that has to be made in the future. And we have 8 years, we're buying 8 to 10 years off of it, and if the demand of housing in this area goes crazy, then these plans may not even be sufficient. And I don't wanna ask, you can ask Christie, I can't ask her, but what's the plan if in 5 years, we get 1,500 new kids, right? Or 1,000 more than the 1,500 we should get,
Right.
we get 2,500.
Right, right.
Well, but
No one's gonna stop it.
Well, and you're right, and that's something that no one can call. And my point is that you look at, Cincinnati's a perfect example. They, you know, I made this comment before. They projected out, they passed this wonderful big levy, and then didn't have, had more buildings than they had kids.
And having a plan like this, Randy, with getting rid of the complexity of 7 plans, getting it down to 1, allowing Christie and the team to make a good presentation that's sellable, I think will help a lot.
Oh,
To
no, I
say,
agree.
here's a strategy, we've looked at a lot of options, obviously you have them here. Here's why this one was pitched, here's why this one was pitched, here's the issue with this one, process of elimination, here's what we've settled on.
But I
It's
just
the
don't think we
best-
sell it.
I don't think you have a choice to try and sell it. You have to come up with the best plan for the time that we know and what decisions you know now. Because I'll throw another one thing out. What happens when Trump privatizes all the schools or whatever,
Well,
right? We're gonna have to deal with that argument for the next 2 years.
Who knows?
Or
But-
4 years.
But the point
right?
being is whatever plan we put out there has to pass. And we
I
can,
agree.
we can say all day, and I don't disagree with when you're saying we build these new schools. Everybody would love a brand new school with all the bells and whistles. At the end of the day, somebody has to pay for it.
Right.
And the people that we have in this community, I don't know, would reach in their wallets, Terry, what was it, $275 per 100,000 at 99 mil, or 99 million?
Was that 110 mil?
Yeah, it was like, we were at 110,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was 110 mil.
110 million at 275 per 100,000, we don't have any $100,000 homes out here. So, I mean,
Tax time right
What,
now.
you know,
where are we in terms if we were to
But I think mine went down.
the OFC?
Mine went down, I think it's 700.
And I only ask because I was in a presentation at the school district where I work, and they are doing a project that they are getting ready to start, and they rolled it out to the teaching staff this week. It's a $40 million project, but because they're reducing their footprint, the OFCC is paying like 34 million, and the
Yeah,
school
they get
district is
credits
paying
Before.
so
So-
I'm just trying to find out,
Right.
is that, as we talk about dollar numbers a little bit, generally speaking,
Right.
Are
So-
there OFCC dollars out there?
Not
Is
right
that
now.
something
No
we should
matter
be-
what, you have to go after the bond levy for the entire amount. There are no OFCC dollars for you right now.
Okay.
Your number hasn't been pulled, and it probably won't be pulled for at least 2 to 3 years, maybe.
Yeah, when I called up there, anywhere from
and-
3 to 4 and a
And
half
so
years.
you have to go after your bond levy and ask everybody to pay for the full amount right now. What would happen is that several years down the road, when your number is pulled,
Okay.
then OFCC will come in and say, okay, your next building campaign, we'll give you the dollars that we would have given you a few years ago, now.
So they balance it out.
Yes, they will balance it out. The part of the problem we have is the maximum percentage you're going to maybe get from OFCC is 14%.
Okay.
And so when you need to think about whether or not it's worth that 14%, because if you do go OFCC, they are gonna come in and evaluate every single one of your buildings. And if it is not OFCC compliant, they will have you make it OFCC compliant. So at the end of the day, you could be spending well more than that 14% to follow their guidelines and bring your existing buildings up to their standards.
When they talked to us a long time ago, they told us to demolish all our buildings.
Well, correct, because they would have come in and done the analysis and they would have
Yeah.
said it's more than 66% to renovate, so they will force you to demolish, yes, absolutely.
That was back
But
then.
the other issue is they would go back and they would look at your existing high school and do the analysis that I did, that says you're 40,000 square feet short in that building for it to be a 1,500 student building. And you would be adding to that building, because
Just to get your
you
14%
accepted
back.
their money, and when you accept their money, it is district-wide. It is
Yeah.
not, I'm gonna take your money
It's
for
not
this
building.
building. It is not building-specific, it is district-wide specific. And so you're kind of opening Pandora's box a little bit, which is why a lot of districts, when you're at this 14%, when, quite frankly, districts that are under like 20% and under, a lot of them are passing, because they don't want to have to
So
follow
can,
that.
just for my own knowledge, so when I sat in this presentation and Mason's doing a $40 million renovation project,
Mhm.
they're going to, amongst others, they're gonna renovate what it was the high school that's on the corner of Mason, Montgomery, and Tylersville. They're going to, they're gonna add, I think, across the street, and they're gonna take what is Western Row Elementary offline altogether.
Mhm.
And it was a $40 million project, and OFCC was gonna pay $34 million, and the district was paying $6 million of that. And so that's why I asked, because that number was.
Because they would have come in and said, okay, we're gonna evaluate your entire district, and you would be getting 14%. They would be, let's say that they were a 20% district, where they would receive 20%. OFCC would evaluate their newer buildings that they've already built and say, we would have given you 20% to build that, so here's that money.
Okay.
But we're gonna go and look at those buildings to make sure that they are OFCC compliant. So my guess is that the buildings that Mason has built to date all
Their newer construction
meet
is.
OFCC standards.
So the 36 million might be based on they didn't get it before. And they're
Correct.
rolling it
They're
over.
not
Correct.
getting it for the $40 million
Correct.
expansion, they're getting it for money they spent
Right.
previously that still adheres to the expansion.
So they
We
can
haven't
roll
spent
it,
anything.
so they can
Correct.
roll it into the new,
Yes.
to the new project.
So does that
Yes.
affect our phase two? Should we expect 14% on phase two reduction?